when you're considering buying a new home, it's very different than a resale. Another thing here is making sure that you actually know the severity in terms of if this is something like a big deal or this is something that can be easily fixed. Tips, little bonuses that I want to share with you. And third-party inspection is when you actually hire an inspector that is licensed to ensure that they go out to the property to assess the situation and ensure that everything is actually good. What's going on, guys? Thank you so much for joining us on another episode for Living in El Paso. I'm Alexa Peña. I'm a local top producing agent here in El Paso, Texas. I'm also an investor, and I'd love to bring insights to what you should be looking after when you are considering buying a property. And on today's video, if you stick around until the end, we will also discuss 3 key components for tips that you should consider when you are looking to actually purchase a home. And this is something that we want to have hand in hand with the list of things you should consider on your inspection when you are purchasing a property. So with that being said, let's dive deep into the video today. Now, tip number 1 when you are buying a property and conducting your inspection. Now, really quick before I get into that, I want to share with you, when you're buying a home, there's 2 routes that you're going to take. Either you're going to buy a brand new home or you're going to be buying a resale home. Now, this is really important to notate because if you are considering buying a new home, one of the things you want to consider is this property is a home that you are able to conduct an inspection on, and that does not mean just the walkthrough that they tell you to do. I just got done actually speaking with the client. Long story short, the agent that he's using, it was this long story where he wanted to work with me, but he had already signed a contract and he didn't want to do that client wrong. Anyways, if you're watching the video, you know who I'm talking about because he's actually one of our YouTube viewers. But anyways, super sweet guy. And long story short, because of the loyalty he had, he wanted to keep working with this agent. He had already signed the buyer agreement. And this agent had not mentioned to him that he needed to conduct a inspection with a third party versus just the inspection that is the walkthrough. For those of you that are brand new home buyers and you don't know what a walkthrough is, it's basically when the builder tells you, hey, your home is ready. We're going to be able to have you actually conduct a walkthrough on the property to essentially have your blue tape and be able to actually put this around the home to ensure that obviously everything is taken care of as far as maybe cosmetic things that are done, cosmetic things that you need to go ahead and have fixed. Well, long story short, they did not tell him he could actually conduct a inspection with a third party. And he was like, wait, what is that? And I was like, well, a third party inspection is when you actually hire an inspector that is licensed to ensure that they go out to the property to assess the situation and ensure that everything is actually good. So this is part of the reason why it's so important to work with the right people. But long story short, when you're considering buying a new home, it's very different than a resale because with the resale, we're gonna have to negotiate. With a new home, this is something that is a non-negotiable. If the report comes back and there's things that need to be fixed, they need to be fixed. And that is super important for you to notate because if you're somebody that maybe doesn't wanna deal with any of the TLC, you just want a home that is ready to move in, then you definitely want to consider maybe going down the route of a new home versus a resale because that is going to be negotiable, okay, in terms of repairs. So one of the first things that I want to share with you is if you get that inspection report back, always look at the foundation. That's extremely important, and I feel like it goes without saying, but you would be surprised of how many times I've noticed things that come back on a report, and if I wouldn't have brought it up to a client, they wouldn't have even thought about it. So making sure that the foundation is solid is extremely important, and the foundation goes hand in hand with the roof, right? You don't want your roof to cave in, you don't want your foundation to give out. Now I will share, just because there is a problem with the foundation, that does not mean that it is not something you can actually fix. I've had a lot of situations where recently, actually, the most recent one was the inspection came back, we saw that there was foundation problems, and we actually negotiated that with the sellers, and we told them, hey, you know what, we really want to buy your home, but we just need to make sure that this is fixed because if not, we won't be able to proceed. They actually ended up agreeing. It was definitely a lengthy process, but nevertheless, they fixed it. And my client was actually really happy because he got a great deal on the home and he got that fixed. So it's not a deal breaker, but obviously you want to make sure you're aware of it, because if you weren't and you bought it, now you're really upset. Now, tip number 2 is going to be your electrical and your plumbing. Another thing here is making sure that you actually know the severity in terms of if this is something like a big deal or this is something that can be easily fixed. Quick example, maybe you have long hair, and you all know that our hair just decides to shed, right? So maybe it's clogging the plumbing, and if that's the case, then obviously there can be something there that is an easy fix versus maybe, I don't know, the entire plumbing system is giving out on the home because it was built in the 1900s, right? So these are key things to look after. And this is where your better judgment with your professional comes into play to ensure that obviously when you're deciding to move forward with that home, you know what to expect. Now, a quick tip that I will share at the end is going to be your home warranty, the difference between a home warranty and a home insurance. So if that's something you're interested in learning more about, definitely stick around, because this is something that could save you thousands of dollars that many people are not aware of. Now, tip number 3 on your checklist, and by the way, if I didn't mention this at the beginning, I did create a checklist for you guys that you can download absolutely for free. I just appreciate the fact that you guys have been watching our videos. And for those of you that keep coming back, thank you so much. If you don't mind, if you want to subscribe to the channel, this helps us tremendously with the algorithm to ensure that we can get our information out to more people just like yourself that are trying to be educated before buying a home. Anyways, back to the points. So the number 3 is going to be your heating and your HVAC system. Essentially, if you live in Colorado, maybe for you, your refrigerated air is not that big of a deal versus somebody that maybe like myself, I live in Texas, and if I literally go outside right now and I put an egg on the street, it will sizzle up and we'll have an egg ready. So obviously, air for us is very important. There's different terms for the AC systems, evaporative. For the most part, refrigerated air is what you want to look for here in Texas at least. And I've seen a lot of the times people are not aware of the difference, and then they get into a house and they're like, it's so hot, I hate it here. It was because you decided to move forward with a house that didn't have refrigerated air. And at least if you did, you knew what to expect in terms of how much it was going to cost you. But more so what I mean with this is making sure that they have conducted maintenance, that they have done the proper things. A lot of the times I'll see condensated line not working, and it's really just that it hasn't been, it hasn't given maintenance or anything along those lines. So ensuring that you actually have that inspection done by a professional is really going to help you. Number 4 is going to be your window treatments and windows. So I will just simplify this. Make sure your windows are not cracked, okay? There's a lot of times where we've noticed that houses have windows that are not opening properly, and on the inspection report it will show you this, and this is why it's so important to hire that inspector that is going to really do their due diligence to ensure that this property does work properly. The last thing you want is for your window not to open and you want to open it, or worse yet, there's an emergency, you can't open your window. That would not be ideal. Now, tip number 4 is going to be your landscaping. This is something a lot of people don't consider, but I'll give you a quick story time. I had a client that was going to buy a property, beautiful home, they fell in love with it, they wanted to write an offer. However, I noticed that in the backyard, the actual tree was literally about to cave in, like that tree was not well. So we had to negotiate with the sellers to actually tear down that tree. And I love trees, so I hate the fact that I had to say that, but it was kind of already dead, so But making sure that obviously these things are stuff that you are considering is really helpful to avoid you having your backyard tree fall into your house, right? That wouldn't be fun. Also, the slopes on the home, sometimes the actual contractors that created, the landscaping or whatever, they did not do the proper slope, and now you have water that's starting to get stuck on the foundation, and that can cause a problem within itself that you definitely don't want to have on your hands. It's easy solutions, believe it or not, but again, making sure you're aware of it is extremely helpful. And the last points that I want to make with you are, for those of you that stuck around, and these are just going to be tips, little bonuses that I want to share with you. Make sure that you are really looking at Also, the smoke detectors of the house, that's something that if they don't have the proper smoke detectors, the GFCI outlets, things of that nature, it's going to just cause a back and forth between the appraiser going out there and then them having to fix it, and it's going to prolongate your closing. Make sure that's taken care of. Another quick tip is make sure the area that you're looking into is really what you want. We have talked about this time and time again. There's people that relocate and they come into El Paso and they did not consider the fact that maybe the area they wanted to be was in the west because they were going to be closer proximity to some of the trails we have out there versus all the way in maybe Horizon, where they're not going to have access to as many trails as they would want. Horizon is a beautiful area and definitely a lot of different amenities, but this is just something you want to consider to ensure that at the end of the day, you have obviously close proximity to what you want. And this is going to go into my last tip, okay? My little bonus here. Tip number 3 is make sure you're working with the right people, okay? I will say this time and time again, ensure that you know who is representing you, because if you have the right person, all of the things that we just talked about and more, they're going to share with you, and you're going to know what to expect, you're going to know what to look after. If you're not working with the right people, just like the story time we shared earlier, they're gonna just wanna get the sale done. They have like this sales agent, in a sale. You don't want that, okay? You wanna work with people that genuinely care about you, that genuinely wanna make sure that you have all these things addressed before you actually sign on the dotted line. So working with the right people is extremely important. I did recently make a video also about the NAR settlement and whether you should just hire an attorney and buy a home without having to have the attorney, without you having to have a buyer's agent represent you. That video was very informative as well, so I will link that down below for you that maybe is interested in learning more about that. But with that being said, I want to thank you so much for your time. Again, I have created that checklist as a free resource down below, so if you're interested, claim it. It's free, why not? And I will talk to you guys on the next one. Thank you so much for tuning in today.